Hi and welcome to part 4 of building my East Indian Rosewood Writing Slope. I'm always mindful to leave a little bit at the end of any board for any checking that might happen. There's absolutely no sign of that happening here, but we'll leave a little allowance there just in case. And I'm going to mark the length of the major components on here. After sawing to length, I'm going to be resawing this section here, and it's the inside faces which will eventually become the outside of the writing slope, and so that's when I'll see what the figure is going to look like. And it'll also give me plenty of opportunity to test the moisture content right inside the heart of this board. So how do we achieve a grain match in a box? Well, I've cut these boards out of a solid, thicker board, and I've, as you can see, put a carpenter's triangle on the edge there, so that although they've been acclimatizing in the house for several weeks now, there's no way that I could have mixed them up, so I got them upside down, round the wrong way, or flipped over in that direction. I know that's how they came out of the original board. And that's important. If your grain or your figure isn't that striking as this one is, you wouldn't necessarily know where they came from. This has got quite a striking grain, and I think you can see quite clearly that those two boards were next to each other. Anyway, going back to the box, if we made a box out of this and we used the faces on the outside here to wrap around the outside of the box, we would get something which was mildly matched in grain and figure. And that's because when the pieces were together, they were just about a thick inch apart. So there's been room for the grain and the figure to change over that distance, but not a great amount. However, to make things a lot better, why don't we use the faces on the inside where we cut through? They've only been separated by the thickness of a kerf and a few clean-up cuts with the plane, so they should be a lot better matched. And let's just have a look at those two, and you can see there that's a much better match. So that could be one corner of the box. If I close those up again, you should be able to see at this other end they're also matched. And in fact, anywhere along that joint line, if we were to cut through, we'd get a good match. So that can give us two corners, and those two corners need to be opposite each other in the box, and the other two corners need to be cut from the individual boards. And quite easily, if we open this up, you can see that wherever I cut through to get a side and a face, I'm going to end up with just the kerf of a thin blade such as this. So a very thin kerf, and so the grain match there is going to be pretty much perfect. Same on the other one, cut through, good grain match. Now it's important to notice that this went together in this direction, and I'm going to be cutting, say, a side from here and an end from here, which means that that needs to be a side at that end and that needs to be an end up here, so that it all goes around the box. So whatever you do, don't cut two sides and two ends like that. Always refer back to how they were originally together in the solid. Now let's look at a joint which has that figure and grain match around the end. So this is a dovetail joint, got a very clear figure on here, and as we turn around you can see it's continued around the box. Now that's a through dovetail joint, and well, frankly, I don't really want that in this box. I want it to be a bit finer than that. So what I'm going to do is a mitered joint. Again, this has got the grain running around it, although it's not a particularly obvious grain, but it does run around the joint. Because it's the miter, then we get the whole length there is nicely matched up, as opposed to with the dovetail joint, there's always a gap between here and there, or there and there. You never actually got it absolutely wrapping around one point to another point. On a mitered joint you do. And the options for a mitered joint are quite varied. You could have a spline joint, you could have, you could use biscuits, you could use dominoes, lots of different ways of doing it. But I like to do, and for this box I'm going to be doing what's called a secret miter dovetail. So it's a dovetail joint, but the actual corner that comes together is mitered. And that should show off the grain match, the figure match around the corners really nicely. Now my next job, because these have been acclimating, they have moved very slightly. They're not perfectly flat anymore. What I need to do is flatten the faces that are going to be the outside of the box. So what was inside this board, I want to flatten those, taking away the minimum amount of material that I can, and then I'll thickness them to the wall thickness for the box. So next time I'll start by flattening and thicknessing the boards. Cheerio!